This here is a pulley that came off of my cattle chute. It is the gate return, kind of a counterweight pulley. And what it would do is it had this wire rope that wrapped around this pulley here, and it provided a counterweight for the rear gate that went behind the cows. So when the cow came in the chute, the gate would close by gravity, but then when it came time to lift it back up, that gate's pretty heavy. This would help offset that weight and cause it to come up more automatically. When we were last working the cows, I heard this thing free spin inside itself and unwind, and it was no longer usable. In order to finish working the cows, I had to manually lift the gate up, and then my wife would put pressure up against it while the cows came in. That's not ideal. It needs to be where it functions the way it was actually designed, so that she could just pull the rope. There's a blue rope that we use. She could pull that blue rope and it would cause the gate to come down. With her having to stand right there at the gate, it kind of caused the cows to hesitate going into the chute. So I need to get this fixed. So I took this off of the chute, and it was attached with these square-headed bolts. So it kind of gives you an idea of the age of this pulley. Other than that, I was not able to find any markings or manufacturer, anything like that. I tried to take it apart, and I was at one point able to get this pulley off, but the rest of the thing was pressed together with this bearing here in the middle, and I pried and pressed and did everything I could do, and I eventually thought, well, maybe I could grind the bearing out, and then I could just replace the bearing. And the more I got into it, and you can see all the rust and everything that came off of it, I realized at that point that this thing is just too rusted to really repair. And if you can hear it when I shake it, that rattle inside, that indicates that the pulling mechanism is broken. So even if I could get it apart, I'd still have to figure out either how to repair it, maybe as rusty as it is, or if I could find parts. But the problem again is I couldn't find a manufacturer. And I did a good bit of research to look for vintage cattle chute pulley mechanism, everything in the world. I thought of all kinds of different search terms. So I ended up finding something that I think will do the trick, and with the idea that this is a counterbalancer for that rear gate, I did a search term for counterbalancer, and I started coming across tool counterbalancers. And what those are, it's for industrial settings where you have tools that like hang from the rafters. You would put your counterbalancer up there, and it comes down with a wire rope similar to that, and then you would attach your tool to the end of it, and it would counterbalance the weight, so that if you're handling this 5-10 pound tool all day, when you let go of it, it doesn't go to the ground. It instead kind of stays suspended in the air. So with that in mind, thinking that this is a counterbalancer for the cattle chute gate, a tool counterbalancer would work. As I'm talking about a tool counterbalancer, this deer shows up in my front yard. It's got one antler going across my driveway. Across my fence. Thank you for not tearing up my fence. And off he goes into the woods. Okay, where was I at? Got distracted by a deer. Squirrel! Alright, so needed to determine what the counterbalance weight of this was, and with it broken I couldn't tell. So then I thought I'll get a rope on the gate and pull it, and with a interesting tool that I have, I was able to determine that it's at about 30 pounds of pull force. So then I went on eBay and started searching for tool counterbalancers at around 30 pounds, and they range from around 200 and up in price. I didn't really want to spend that much money on the cattle chute just because it is so old, and you know, when I get up to that money, then I need to really start considering, should I just replace the cattle chute itself. But lo and behold, as I was on eBay, I came across this. It is a 30-pound tool balancer, and it has adjustability and lockout. I don't need the lockout, but I probably will need this adjustability. With the tool that I use to determine the pull weight, it's a pretty close guesstimate, but this is good that it has adjustability. It is smaller, and I have a plan on how I'm going to mount this to the chute using just bolts. I don't want to weld anything. So I'm going to do that today, get out there and attach this to the cattle chute. Surprisingly, I was able to pick this up for $5. I think with shipping to me it was closer to 30, but I won it on auction. And made in USA. It seems to be a good tool, and it does pull at 30 pounds, and I haven't noticed anything wrong with it. So this was a bit of a steal. I'm very surprised that this came up for auction right around the time that I was looking for a tool balancer to replace this one. And to my surprise, there was very little interest. I think there were 2 other bidders, but they only bid up to, like I said, it was like $5.95. My max bid was I think I put $50 on this as my max bid, and didn't come anywhere close, which I was happy about. So I ended up using this a few days ago to determine the pull weight, and I took this blue rope over here, tied it to the gate assembly, and then used this to determine how much of a pull force. And when I did that, it registered right out about 30 pounds, right in that area. So that's why I bought a 30-pound tool counterweight. So now I'm going to see if I can get this set up on this door here. kidding me? That's as far as it goes. Alright, so I've got some more cable. It's a little bit thicker than what came with the balancer. The tool balancer doesn't quite have quite enough cable for this application, but I'm going to extend it here and use some cable that I had available. So this is going to be a two-piece wire connection plus my rope puller hook. Oop. Just going to kind of go like this. I guess I can go this way with it. And I'm just reusing the old hardware that I had before. Just got to get everything lined up here just right. Alright. And it's going to go like that. So here I'm just going to make a loop on this end. This piece that came with the thinner cable is just too thin for whatever loop I was considering, so just going to loop it in on itself. Let's see if I have some black tape to put around that so it won't fray too bad. Got a little bit of black tape here with me. Going to put this on temporary. I'll snug it down later. Alright, let's release the brake on this. I like this little brake here. It's kind of nice. Alright. Oh, that's much nicer. So one-handed. And then of course when we're up here, we'll lock it in place and it holds it. So let me set this up and I'll do the full effect. Make sure everything's in alignment. So we just keep this rope inside, because if we didn't keep it with us, then it would just rot here on the, you know, being outside in the weather. Alright, so the tool balancer is holding the gate up. I've got the brake off of the rear gate, and so then we can stand over here, pull it down, lock it down, and then when we're done, now it's holding its own weight by its own, but all it takes is a slight pull and it's ready to go. I like it. Alright, so now the other thing I want to do is, when we're working the cows, this chain is at a kind of a weird angle for this holder here. It would be better
if the chain crimped here to better lock it in place, or maybe even down here, but something like that. Probably right here is where I want to make one of these holders. So that's my next task out here. So I brought this little piece of bar stock that I'm going to use. I'm going to make a slit in it down the middle. I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to actually kind of bend it a little bit like that so that the chain can clip in there and stay. Alright, so when I've got the chain, I'm going to be able to clip it. Looks like I need to widen it just a little bit more. There we go. Now we got it pulled all the way tight. Don't want it sticking out too much. Right about the T where I wrote cattle is where I want it, but I need to bend these forks down a little bit. Alright, so I got a good bend in there. Alright, so here's what I got done on my cattle chute today. First thing is this bar here. You see where it was heated up right in there. This bar was bent, and it's still bent, but the way it was bent out, it was bent way over this way, and it was causing my two arms here when the cows come in, this arm would close first before this one, so it's kind of off-centered and it wouldn't close all the way tight. So I got that fixed, got that bit back over centered. I mean, the bar is still crooked as all get out, but it's going to work better now. Secondly, this is how that weld turned out. This stock is kind of thin. It's got like a little plate around the bar, so I kind of had to burn through that first plate to get a good weld. But I got it on there and got those forks bent down so the chain won't slip out. When we have some really small calves, we can put them in there and this will hold them, and we're not having to sit here and hold this bar down like I usually have to have my wife do. So now we'll have that to clamp it down, and it's a good secure fit. And thirdly, I got this tool balancer installed, and it turned out good. Wish that the tool balancer cable had more in it so I wouldn't have to do a splice like I did right here. But it worked out okay. I had the cable on hand, so I didn't have to go to the store and buy anything. So now the gate will hold itself up, and then my wife can kind of stand back and just pull it down. And it's pretty well balanced now, so you can see gravity is holding the gate down. So then it's simply lock it down in place with that brake, or unleash it, put a little pull on it, and it just goes up and it holds itself right there. So happy with it. It's a little the blue is a little bit out of place with the rest of all this rust, but it matches my pull rope at least. So yesterday I stood right about here and filmed a deer going across my yard, and you may have noticed how the yard looked yesterday. And I woke up this morning, very next day, and all of that. Looks like the yard was carpet bombed overnight. And here's a closer look at it. All this is hog ruts. And all in this little side yard here. Zoom in a little bit and show you some of the damage. So good thing I made that fence harrow, because this will probably come in useful once it's dried up a little bit, and I can come back over it with the fence harrow and try to smooth everything out. If not, I'll have to use the probably the PTO tiller. I've got a little hand tiller that you saw me use in a previous video, but this is too big of an area to try to repair by hand, so I'm gonna have to get the tractor out for this one. And also gonna have to get the AR-15 out, because this is ridiculous.